Alright, so today we have something new and pretty exciting to talk about and test out. This one right here is the Ableton Push 3.
Accurate beats.
This is now a fully standalone device with a battery inside of it, and it runs Ableton Live 11 just as it is right now. One of the main things that makes me really excited about this one is that we're now getting full MPE functionality on the drum pads themselves. That's never been done before, I think. Sure, on keyboards, but not for pads, so that's exciting. Push 3 also has Wi-Fi that enables you to transfer files and projects and sync stuff back and forth between the unit itself and the computer. So you could start working on something in standalone mode and then transfer everything to the computer without even needing a cable to work on the project in Ableton Live on the computer. We're also getting a bunch of new workflow improvements on this one that wasn't there for the previous models of Push. And at least in my book, that means that this one might be a little bit easier to learn from the get-go for a new user. But on the other hand, if you do have some experience using Push 1 or Push 2, this one won't be that different for a user like that either. Now let's take a closer look at the actual unit and talk about the I/O and all the stuff that's going on here. And then I just want to make a beat on this one. So we're talking about 64 drum pads with full MP functionality, that's MIDI polyphonic expression. It also has polyphonic aftertouch and of course velocity sensitivity. A bunch of touch sensitive knobs for navigation, editing, controlling volume and so on, and the slider over here is similar to the one found on Push 2. We're getting two audio inputs and outputs, but also ADAT in and out here for expanding the I/O like that. MIDI in and MIDI out that requires breakout cables, and also a USB-A connection here for hooking up MIDI keyboards and such, and this one also works with USB hubs if you want more devices than just one. Then there's the power input, but also a USB-C connection here, either for connecting Push 3 to a computer or for powering the unit itself over USB. That's a nice touch. The two pedal inputs over here could also be switched and used as CV gate connections, and that allows you to hook up stuff like modular or semi-modular synths and sequence them from Push like that. Last up here we have the headphone output and the power switch. Now it also needs to be said that Push 3 now comes in two different versions, where this one is obviously the more expensive one with the full standalone capabilities. But if you want this kind of form factor and the audio interface part of it and use it as a controller for your Mac or PC, you could get a cheaper option that's basically just a controller that looks exactly the same. On top of that, there's also going to be an upgrade kit available for anyone who buys the controller version of Push 3 and wants to turn it into the standalone version after the fact. So you're basically going to be able to install the computing parts yourself and turn the controller version to the standalone version. I haven't heard anyone doing anything like that before, so that's kind of cool. And speaking about the computer itself, of course there's an actual computer inside of this one. We're talking about a Linux machine on an i3 processor, 8 GB of RAM, and 256 gigs of storage. So that's what it is. Let's also keep in mind the fact that people has been wanting a new generation of Ableton Push since way back. Push 2 came out 8 years ago and Ableton Push 1 10 years ago, and that one's still fully supported by the latest version of Ableton Live, by the way. So hopefully this one will be fully supported for quite a bit. You know what? Let's stop talking about this one completely and put it to work and make a beat on Ableton Push 3. Kinda cool. So the plan here is to do pretty much what I normally do when it comes to beat making. That is chopping up a sample and putting some drums on it and a bass line, and perhaps doing a little bit of, some sort of melody line on top of the entire thing. And that's where it could be really cool to use this MPE functionality that Push 3 offers. Let's go plus to add a device and down to MIDI track and straight to the packs. Let's actually move out of this pack and look for something else in terms of drums. Over here is the Iron Man kit that I've favored since before, so let's just... Yeah, now let's get my sample in here. There are a few ways to do that, but I prefer this one. Plus audio track, then get over here to load up my sample from my user library. Sure, I could go in here and start editing the sample itself and placing it on the timeline in a clip, but that's not what I want for this. Instead, I want to convert this into a sampler. Let's go to slicing, and here I could slice the sample however I see fit. Let's try by beat first of all and change the division so it's somewhat manageable. And sure, that could be somewhat of a starting point, but in this case I think I want to do this totally manual. And that's done by just playing the sample and hitting any pad that's not lit up. We could actually go in here to the global settings and change the pitch, and that affects the entire sample, every single slice of it. And again, since every single slice here sits in one single instance of Simpler, I could use the warp functionality in Simpler to affect all of them at once. So let's take this one. And let's turn warp on. That's just crazy, right? In this case, it took it way too far and made the slice super long, but I could always change that. But considering this is all happening in real time on a standalone device, I just think it's really cool to have something this powerful. But we could also change the warp mode here. In this case, it's beats. We can go tones, texture, repitch, complex. Or we could go pro. Let's go global and change the pitch up a couple of semitones. Cool. And that's where this warp functionality really works, when you're trying to change the pitch of the sample, but you kind of don't want it to be super short either if you're raising the pitch. But I think it's time to start recording something here. Let's go over to my drums first of all. Yeah, kind of like that, but it's not perfect, so let's make some adjustments to the MIDI here, all done from the clip view over there. First of all, let's select my snares and move them a little bit to the left to be a bit early on the beat. And the opposite goes for the hi-hat, that needs to go to the right. That's a lot better, but I still need to change the velocity of the hi-hat a little bit per step, and these are now my two first bars, and these are my two second bars on the sequencer over here, so let's just do that by note, one at a time. That just makes my drum loop a little bit more dynamic and fun to listen to. Let's go over to my sample and see if we can add something here. I think something like that works for my first sequence. Now let's make another one by hitting New and record, starting with a different pad. And the next step would be to convert all these different slices in the Simpler to a drum rack. This allows me to do even more editing per slice, so in this case, not crazy about the warping on that one, so let's try something else. To me, it just sits better in the mix like that, so let's see if we can do something to the entire sample here. An audio effect and just a channel EQ. I think I want to cut some of the bass from the sample, because the next step here is to add my own bass line. A flat minor should be nice and simple like that. And for my second pattern, let's also add this upright piano from Spitfire Audio. That's one of the packs that I've got. And I'm not going to use that for the entire loop, but maybe just for a clip or two. So cool cool to use for something in the track, eventually. Didn't I say something about maybe adding some sort of melody line here with an MP instrument? Let's give that a try too. Let's use Drift, the new one, and